especially if you have a server delay.
Yeah.
And I said, like, we won't have that with R Factor 2. And he went, oh, good. So, yeah. Oh, dear.
SRHI, is it live?
evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to round 3, season 3 of GT3 for the Sim Racing Hub International. And we are here at the fantastic Silverstone circuit, based in between Silverstone and Whittlebury, not too far outside of Towcester. My name's Alex Goldschmidt, and once again, I'm joined by the very, very well entrusted co-commentator, but also our cameraman for this evening. Good evening, Steve Proudley.
Good evening, Alex. It's great to be back with you, buddy, for the SRHI and at Silverstone as well. What an awesome track, and we've seen some fantastic racing before we've had the short break. But there was some fantastic racing in the previous rounds, and I'm looking forward to some more exciting stuff around Silverstone, which is a high-speed track, and potentially looking at the conditions they've had in practice could be a challenge this evening.
Indeed. Firstly, this stream is brought to you courtesy of SimSport Solutions. But here on Tier 1, we cover both pro and semi-pro. They've just had an hour's worth of free practice. And it is current overall championship leader, George Boothby, in the 666 Ferrari. That was quickest in the free practice session with a 2-minute 9.8 in torrential wet weather conditions, only having put 5 laps in. Craig Barney in the number 85, which is the McLaren 720S, one of the many Dutch drivers in this championship, was second, just under 6.5 tenths of a second behind. Then Bart Sverink in the number 12 Lexus, Sam Spenkelink in the number 64 Porsche, and then it was Tim Muris in the number 9 Honda NSX GT3 that rounded out the top 5 positions, covered by just under 1.45 seconds. And Steve, just to think about it, when we've got in the practice server, we had I think it indicated 44 cars set to go on the grid, but the championship itself is looking rather exciting. Just 2 rounds in out of 9 for this particular season.
Yeah, absolutely. As I said on the intro there, we've had some very, very close racing. We've had some drivers that have suffered some bad luck in some of those races. There's been a few results that could have been slightly different. But the man to watch, I think you'll agree, is Mr. Boothby, isn't it? He seems to be almost in a class of his own, with not just with his speed, but his pretty much his consistency as well. He's one quick driver who can put it together for 60 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we can't count out some of the other drivers. I mean, especially the other 2 in the top 3 for pro. Niels van der Kerkelt, who's running in the same machinery, obviously knows George very, very well. They're currently running in the SimGrid Sprint Cup as teammates. But, you know, Niels has been a very, very close competitor. He's taken 2 second places, both at the Nürburgring and Misano. Misano was the last round that we had previously. Marcel V in the Bentley, the 969 Artworks car, currently rounds out the top 3. He's only 5 points behind Niels van der Kerkelt. But then there's other drivers that we've seen, like Christian Melcherek, who actually took a P6 at Nürburgring and then a P4 at Misano. That's brought him in the 46 Ferrari up into 3rd in the championship, 15 points behind Marcel V. Sam Spenkelink, you know, he's got a little bit of work to do, as is Arwin Nam. Dave Jr.'s been looking rather quick here at Silverstone. He rounds out the top 7 ahead of Dan Lenson, Tim Uris, Vanik Valenduk, and then who rounds out the top 10. So pro itself looks rather interesting. Patrick Vunst, in the meantime, in semi-pro in the 777, Lexus is leading the standings on 55 points. In the class, but 15 points overall. Then it's Jordi Bakker in the 99. So it's the Lexus 1-2 at the moment, Steve. And then Giorgio Raimondi, who came into the championship in the Audi, didn't do Nürburgring, but came back in at Misano, finished 9th overall. And that literally has given Jordi Bakker and Patrick Vance something to think about coming here to Silverstone. And I have seen already Jeroen Neidhart, who said, why is it Monza on the track? Yep, our sincerest apologies. There you go. Changed at a moment's notice over to Silverstone. I mean, semi-pro is just as competitive as pro because everyone wants to do their level best, don't they, Steve?
Yeah, absolutely, and as I said, it's challenging. Whatever class you're in, the guys are all quick and they're all out there to win. And we've had some great drives in the GT3s Pro and Am and the GT4 Championship that runs every other week opposite to the GT3. So there's some fantastic drivers throughout this grid, whatever class they're in and in whatever car. But at the moment, I mean, qualifying's just getting underway, so I think we'll jump into qualifying. But as you see when we jump in, the guys are actually struggling to put laps in. The conditions are not exactly favourable for fast times this evening.
Oh, that is torrential and then some. 26 minutes on the clock to go. In the words of Jeremy Clarkson, this is, well, I mean, Jeremy Clarkson will probably say, yes, it's just mildly moist. No, it's completely torrential down here at Silverstone, as we're with Niels van der Kekelt. No one's really set a benchmark lap time right about now. And you can see that the weather looks to be staying with us for the foreseeable. So 12 degrees air temperature, 16 degrees track temperature. Also, in terms of the we'll get back to. I'm just going to quickly roll back whilst we get an opportunity. As Van der Kekelt now powers his way across the line. 2-minute 11.2. Not a bad lap in these torrential conditions, as he's now going to go through. As a lot of cars now coming out of the pit lane. Dave Jr. is just under 0.2 of drift in the number 10 Mercedes. So rounding out the top 10 in semi-pro at the moment, from fourth downwards is Damien de Keyser, Piet Vanyer, Tim Krol, Benjamin Simmers, Dennis Werkman, Frans van der Linden, and Sander Veil rounding out the top 10. Cymax Motorworks lead the way in the championship standings ahead of Odyssey, Pulse Motorsport, Dark Sky Racing, and Team Rocket the Fast. That is, and they're actually the top semi-pro team in the overall standings, which is a pretty good effort at this particular point in time. 3.660 miles here at Silverstone, and we can just see here, Pete, Steve, that Boothby's now coming out through Woodcote into Luffield, now going across the line. He's now going to start his first hot lap, and this is where the drivers are now going to think, oh, in the UK, it never rains, but it pours, especially our Dutch compadres.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. Yeah, when it does rain, it really rains. And the McLaren we're watching at the moment is currently half a second up on his personal best at the moment, which would be enough to take him to provisional pole. The McLaren, we said we'd touch on the different cars' performance aspects, and the McLaren normally in the dry conditions around Silverstone is a pretty useful package around here. But it's an interesting when it rains what a leveler it is, because it does come down to not just the car a lot more, but I think the finesse of the driver with that loud pedal and with the steering inputs and the braking forces applied at the right time and the right pressures. I think it's just a heck of a lot harder driving in these conditions and to get the maximum out of any of the cars. So it could really be anybody's race this evening. It'd be interesting to see how qualifying finishes tonight.
Yeah, well, Niels van der Kekelt seems to be the one that has the upper hand on people initially, with just under 23.5 minutes of this session still to go, and he goes even faster. Look at that time from the Flying Dutchman. Niels van der Kekelt, the number 47 Ferrari, goes in and puts in a 2-minute 9.831. And Steve, that was rather comparative to the 666 of George Boothby in the practice session. 21 thousandths in the favour of Boothby, and we know how much pace Boothby has got in the tank in that car.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's interesting, obviously, that the conditions are making a massive difference to the times tonight, because, I mean, just going from memory, I think, a good average sort of a dry time around here would be into the 56s and 57s, definitely 56s. So, we're a good sort of, 12, 13 seconds away from those times in these conditions. So that's just going to show how wet this track is at the moment. And here's a driver that can handle wet conditions. We've seen him actually do very well at Brands Hatch, I think it was, in some very wet conditions.
Yeah.
Spenkelink. So it'll be interesting to see how Sem gets on this evening.
Yeah, well, Boothby's just put it 2.5 tenths slower than Van der Kekelt. So Boothby winding up the wick on the 666. Sem Spenkelink in the Dark Sky Racing, very fluorescent cyan blue, almost Tron-esque there, Steve. He's just a second off. Then you've got the number 90, that is Klaas Verster in the Ferrari. Then it is And there you go, Team Rocket the Furious. He's part of that crew. Very
Wester
nice.
is 7/10 up as well. Sorry to interrupt there. If that's a clean lap, that's a good one. But I don't think it was clean. Is it clean?
That'll put him beef. We'll just have to wait and see, because if he was 7/10 up, it's just when he comes through Woodcote and Luffield.
I can say he's lost a little bit. He's now just 4/10 up, but he's still got time to make some of that back. As we can see, the Ferrari just snaking and protesting there as he's trying to put the accelerator down and get some of that horsepower onto the track, some of that torque used wisely, as he's now going to be full throttle down here. I think it's safe to say, and he's going to be looking to get some maximum speed down the straight into the braking zone for the more or less the left-right for the final corner, and see if he can improve. He is currently 4/10 up, so will be interesting. I think he's going to get an improvement as long as he can keep it all together around this final corner.
Yeah, well, we'll just see how Klaus Vester gets onto the curbing there, going through. Now this is going through into from Luffield into Woodcote. Vester now currently drops to 6th, up to P3, nigh on exactly 6/10 off of Boothby. Times are changing all the time at the moment. Patrick Bunce is up to P6. He's the top of the semi-pros. The nearest one to him is down in 13th, which is the number 90. Well, make that 14th, as Aaron van der Oynen goes up into P13. Dave Jr. at the moment in the number 10 Mercedes, currently sitting P10 at the moment.
Boothby sorry, Alex. Boothby, I need to tell you this, is 7/10 up. 7/10 as he's approaching the line now.
Mamma mia, that is good at 2:09.3. Oh my goodness. Van der Kekelt goes, here's the 2:09.8. George Boothby goes, right.
Challenge accepted.
And I hold my beer.
Absolutely, mate, yeah. Another car here, Markesh, in the Lexus. The Lexus normally does pretty well in the wet conditions. It'll be interesting to see. He is 7/10 up on his personal best at the moment, so we'll see him jump up the order a little bit as he goes, in fact, up to P17 at the moment, for a full 2.3 seconds away from Boothby's storming time, but we may see some more improvements. The guys are still finding the feet. They've still got just over 19 minutes left to go of qualifying. We can see the cars protesting and squirming. I don't think anyone's managing to keep it so precise and so smooth. They're just hitting these little puddles of water, and they're just applying that pressure a little bit too much to the throttle and getting out of shape ever so slightly, and it's all those little bit of imperfections that just cost them the few tenths here and there, but they're all doing a pretty good job. I don't think we've seen anyone crashing off into the scenery yet.
No, we did see a few spins. We did see a lone wild Lexus exit stage left. I think it was going through Brooklands a bit earlier on. Here's Klaus Vester back again.
A second up.
He's a second up. That's going to possibly put him ahead of Van der Kekelt as long as he gets things right now. For the Ferrari 3.9 litre, twin turbo V8, mid-engine, 700 Newton meters of torque, one of the fastest cars in a straight line, powers its way out of Woodcote. Where does Klaus Vester go? He goes P2 and halves the gap. So literally, he's like the Ferrari meat in the middle of a Ferrari sandwich there, isn't he?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like I say, it's going to be very, very interesting to see where qualifying shakes out with everybody, because I think it is a good level. I mean, we obviously had the first round at the Nürburgring was a wet one, so it'd be interesting to see if it's the same guys that are shining at the top of the pile again this evening at the end of the 60-minute race.
Yeah, very much the case. Aaron van der Oynen in the number 24 Pro Sim Rig Racing Mercedes, currently P16. 2.1 seconds off the pace, and actually dropping because people are putting times in. We are no way, well, we're about just under 3 minutes away from the halfway point of this 30-minute session. Again, the format is a 30-minute qualifying session. It is then a 1-hour race with a mandatory pit stop where tyres and refueling is required. And obviously with the conditions here, Steve, if they remain as they are, from my perspective, if I wanted to have that opportunity, as we do see Lexus actually going off spinning, and that was going through Brooklands, I would probably hazard a guess that the drivers, in order to not just help their strategy, but also to help the traction on the car, would it be prudent to have that little bit more fuel going into the start of the race and allowing the centre of gravity to do a bit more of the work regarding the traction?
Yeah, potentially. I mean, obviously every car's slightly different with different engine configurations. I think that yes, that could help. The most important thing in the wet, as we've seen Boothby going round an Ease 410s quicker on this lap, so it's going to be another improvement potentially here, as long as it was a clean lap by the time he gets to the end of it. But yeah, I mean, the most important thing I think in these conditions is tyre temperatures. Because the wet, it's very hard to generate any heat, but it's very easy to actually, believe it or not, overheat them if the track does start to dry or anything like that. It's the changing conditions in the wet are very, very difficult to handle. But one man who is handling these wet conditions in qualifying is Boothby. As I say, he's half a second up on his best time at the moment, so that will take him nearly 8/10 away from P2 as it stands.
Wow, that would put him in the 2:08.8 there. That is absolutely ridiculous pace. And also, one of the things here with regards to, we're talking about traction here, because obviously you'll have cars like the Honda, like the Ferrari, like the McLaren, and the Porsche. Spenkelink goes P4 on that one, so Boothby could be the first one to dip under the 2:09s. 2:08.889. Gap between him and Klaus Vester is now 0.7 of a second. Incredible pace. Boothby's got that car hooked up well and truly, and there's a Ferrari spinning in the background just behind Sem Spenkelink, I just noticed there. And here's a car that I would be very interested to see how it performs in the wet. I've seen it do quite well in the hands of Sasha Glatter and Chris Severe in the first round of the Sprint Cup on SimGrid. They were absolutely manhandling that car in the wet, and I think it took a P6 finish, but I'm hoping that Zimmerman can probably bring some Godzilla fire to the party tonight.
Yeah, it'd be very interesting. And Zimmerman he is a quick driver. He's I don't think he's the quickest out of the block, shall we say, but he builds up to some really good pace in the race. But recently I've been fortunate enough to broadcast him in a few other races, and where he's been piloting the Bentley, which would argue could be more suitable to these conditions this evening.
Speaking of said Bentleys, well, Boatleys as we like to call them, and when it's completely flooded, I've now come up with a new nickname, Steve. The Yachtly.
The Yachtly. Yeah, the Yachtly. That's a good one, is that, Alex? But at the moment, Marcel is 1.2 seconds up on his personal best, so hopefully he's going to haul himself up that timing sheet from the P31 he is at the moment. That will do him no harm at all and potentially get him closer to the top 20, into the top 20 maybe, if he can maintain this pace at the moment. He's still 1 full second up at the moment.
Yeah, that could probably put him into the lower, I think probably the final quarter of the top 20. He's now going to come across the line and nails the throttle to the floor. Where does he go? P16. Brilliant lap there by Marcel V at 2 minutes 11.2. Yannick Valenduk, another car that I feel in some respects, Steve, is very, very much not represented enough. The sister to the Audi R8 V10 LMS, the Lamborghini Huracan GT3 Evo. Obviously a completely different animal to the Audi in terms of its handling characteristics and of course its styling, but still has very much the same sort of layout.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a challenging car to drive. I think that's why some people maybe shy away from it. I mean, I almost don't feel qualified to talk about these cars anymore because I guarantee you one thing: all these guys out on the grid this evening are probably doing a better job than I could out there. So it's all purely opinion based. But they are. I think the Lamborghini is quite a difficult car in some aspects on the handling side of things. Believe it has got a lot of horsepower. Down the straights, it's a quick car. But I think the braking and cornering can be challenging unless you've got that right setup and you've just got that fantastic driving ability to get the most out of the car. Because let's not forget, most of us can jump into these cars and be reasonably paced, mid-pace, but to extract that last 10 to 20% of performance out of them, which we see the likes of Boothby doing, that takes a lot of practice, a lot of knowledge and a lot of skill. Yeah,
and with a car such as the McLaren 720S GT3, another car that produces either around 700 newton meters of torque from that 4-litre twin-turbo V8 that's mid-mounted. It's affectionately known in certain circles of the ACC league communities as the torque monster. And when it's in the wet, it can be a bit of a handful, as Goitia in the 127. Currently 2.7 seconds off the pace, down in 27th position. It's not been an easy qualifying session here.
No, it hasn't, and we see him back out of that lap, and we have now got on screen now we've got another underused car, I feel, in the Honda, which is, I think it's a great car to drive. I've sort of played around with it, driven it. I've never actually driven it, I don't think, in a race, but I've practiced with it, I've tested it, and I do enjoy driving it. I think it sounds nice, and it's a nice car to drive. Just maybe not quite as quite as easy to extract the maximum performance, because most of these cars on the grid are capable of winning at various tracks. You know, there's they're good, but it's just, as I say, it's extracting that last 10 to 20% of performance out of them that it can be more difficult in some cars than others. But yeah, the Honda, it's a good car for me, as we just seen. I think that was a Lexus that was backing off the track there.
I think it's the same Lexus we saw at that very same corner about 5 to 10 minutes ago. I'm trying to remember who that is, but that was a very particular livery, very much like the you remember the Red Bull livery when they did the camo for one of their cars for testing? Well, take away the blue, and then swap it around a bit, so you got more. It's a bit like an Alpha Tauri livery, the original one, where it was more white than blue. In the first year when Alpha Tauri was Alpha Tauri, now they've switched it around for 2021 in Formula One. I digress, but it's one of those ones that you can't really not take your eyes off. But Tim Kroll's been doing a fantastic job. The 933. One of the semi-pros. So, but then we have to look at. I'm going to say this: Bart Zwierink from Sim Racing Holland in the number 12. He is P5 in the Lexus. So we've seen it before in multiple races. I mean, you know, you've got Matas Marquez, you've got Patrick Vanst. They're all running. Jordi Bakker, all running in the Lexus. Damien de Kaiser could be a threat this evening. And still, with 10 minutes to go, we don't know if someone is going to start winding up the wicks on their respective cars and try and chase after George Boothby. And I think that's going to be too much of an ask with 9 minutes and 45 seconds on the clock to go.
Yeah, maybe, but Van der Kerkel is 5/10 up on his previous best, so it's not going to be enough to steal the march on George Boothby unless he can gain some more time, but it could be enough to get him on the front row alongside him and beat Wester if he can maintain the 5/10. Well, he's actually got 7/10 up now, so he's creeping ever closer.
Oh, Niels van der Kerkel flying like the Dutchman traditionally does. He's had 2 second-place finishes in the first 2 rounds at Nürburgring and Misano over the first 2 rounds of this 9-round season. We will have we'll have season 4 after the summer break. But van der Kerkel, if he's 7/10 up, that is going to put him within 2.5 tenths of a second off of Boothby's time, which has been absolutely unassailable this time around. Van der Kerkel comes out of Luffield and out of Woodcote, goes across the line. 2-minute 9.168 from the Dutch driver. That's a brilliant lap, as Patrick Vanst now making his way down the Wellington Straight and into Brooklands. But that was a pretty good lap there from Niels van der Kerkel, who's decided to exit back into the pits.
Yeah, Patrick Wanst, he's currently 3/10 up on his personal best at the moment, so that's enough to take him up maybe a couple of positions or more, because the guys in front, that could potentially take him into the top 10 if he can maintain this time, and he's doing it at the moment. As he sneaks into the top 10, into 9th place there. Fantastic drive from him. And we have Tim Kroll, who is also 3/10 up at the moment, so he could actually get well into the top 10 if he can maintain this 3/10, as he's sort of a good nearly halfway around the lap, as it were, and he's just got to maintain. He's up now. He's 5/10 up. So yeah, Kroll's really he's finding his feet and finding the grip.
You know what? He could actually be ahead of Barney in the 85 if he keeps up that pace in that 933 Lexus. And that will depose. I mean, Patrick Vanst, if I remember correctly, was one of our podium place finishers at the Nürburgring.
7th for Tim Kroll, sorry.
Oh my goodness me. 36 thousandths off of the 85 of Clayton Barney in the McLaren. That Lexus is definitely tearing up not just the rain on the tarmac, but also the tarmac itself. As we go back to Tim Muris, one of the Dynamic Motorsports Endurance Hondas.
3/10 up, Alex, as well.
He's 3/10 up as well, so that could probably put him P8 ahead of Don Lanson in the number 31 Ferrari, and dropped Dave Jr. to 10th place. But yeah, I mean, these weather conditions have been absolutely atrocious. There's an 8-kilometer-an-hour wind going across Brooklands. It just goes to show that these drivers are not phased at the minute. But I'm just really interested to see how this Honda in the hands of Tim Muris does coming through Luffield. Now it's going to go through into Woodcote and then go across the start-finish line heading towards Copse. Where does Tim Muris factor in? Oh, he lost a lot of time, didn't he? He was 4 tenths up. He lost a hell of a lot of time as Javi Goichea goes up into P14 with a 2-minute 10.7 in the McLaren. So the 1:27, he's getting a bit quicker out there, isn't he?
He is, and he lost a lot of time in that last corner. As we just switched over to him, he was round about 6 tenths up, and you just saw him come out of the last corner a little bit sideways, which cost him a lot of speed, scrubbed it off. But again, on this lap at the moment, he is 4 tenths up already, so he has got lots of time to find, and it's there available to him. It's just whether he can get that complete lap in, and that's what's very, very difficult. And that's what the likes of the sort of the top 10 are doing at the moment. They're getting that good lap in, especially Boothby up there and Van der Kelt and Wester as well. I mean, Spenkelink's within a second. Those guys are getting the laps in. They are managing to hook the apexes up and maximise their speed and efficiency around the track. As we're just going to see the McLaren come across the line now, but I don't think he's improved ever so slightly.
P9.
Yeah, absolutely.
P9.
So any improvements and improvements, so they say.
Well, in considering the fact we saw him down in P27, he's now made up 18 places. Yellow flag out on the circuit, but Goichea did a fantastic job. I think Aaron van Drooyen, or it was maybe one of the other cars that might have had a bit of an off-track excursion, which brought out the yellow flag. Well, the yellow flag is still out at this particular moment. Just seen that Dmitry Schenk, I believe it is, in the number 8 Honda, currently rounds out the top 17, who are covered by just 2 seconds. Van Drooyen puts in a 2-minute 10.593. The Merc was pretty solid in practice, Steve. But it seems like a lot of the more mid-engined and rear-engine cars, such as the Ferrari, the McLaren, the Porsche, have really brought the fight to the Mercedes, but then the Lexus cars have decided to bring their own fire to the party, and they've really spiced things up. And I think we could see at least one Lexus, I think, on the podium at the end of this race.
Yeah, I mean, don't count anything out, as we saw, like I say, go back to Nürburgring, which was round 1, if memory serves me correctly.
Yeah.
And we sort of thought first and second was sewn up within, the first quarter to a third of a race. It was literally, it was very much between 2 drivers, but Van der Kelt was very, very unlucky with some mishaps towards the end of the race that cost him dearly, I believe, and it just goes to show nothing's over till it's over, as it were, and you can't count your chickens and you've got to get that car over the line, you've got to get that position, and you've got to, to get that top spot, you've got to finish the race.
Yeah, well, as they say, it ain't over until the checkered flag flies. There are other PC, non-PC ways that we could actually describe that, but we're not going to. But Aaron van Drooyen, he's had his fair share of dramas in this championship. But I think it just goes to show that with the amount of drivers that we have in this field, we had 50 sign-ups for pro and for semi-pro, and everyone has been given as good as they've got, as that was Van Drooyen just going a bit sideways, coming out of Aintree in front of George Boothby there. So it's not getting any easier. And, these drivers, I think, first of all, will need some welcome hydration after this session, but also breathe the biggest sigh of relief and then realise, hang on a second, what's the weather going to do for the race itself? Well, that, ladies and gentlemen, is a completely different proposition, as Dan Lenson makes it a quartet of Ferraris. So it's Boothby from Van der Kelt, then it's Vester, then Lenson, who nearly collects that I think might have been the Nissan of Simon Zimmerman that was actually sideways there on the exit of the track. So a top 4 lockout from Ferrari on British soil. It's looking rather foreboding, Steve.
Absolutely, yeah. But I mean, isn't it really good to see that we've got all those Ferraris up at the top end there, 5 Ferraris. But then going back, you've got the Porsche, Lexus, McLaren, Lambo. It's a few moments ago, it was a good mix of cars. Now Ferrari have sort of locked out the top 5.
Oh,
But
now look who's just jumped up there. Cody Price just jumped in there, just over 2/10 off of Boothby, and he split him and Van der Kekelt. Boothby's just gone 57 thousandths quicker. Dan Lenson looking to improve as we've got 1:30 on the clock still to go. So Lenson on that particular time does not improve. But yeah, I mean,
that's not the way to go.
Hutman in the 84 Audi has literally gone. He's gone rally crossing in that thing. Hang on, this is not World RX. This is not Andrew Coley on commentary. This is Silverstone at its absolute worst when the rain does come down. And believe you me, I've been at Silverstone where it's been raining cats and dogs like this, and I've been standing in the grandstands. Not the most pleasant of experiences.
No, absolutely not. And it's you've seen a Mercedes there of Kran just getting a little bit of sideways. He was up on his time, and now he's 6/10 down due to that. A lot of the guys are in the pits now. We've got very few cars. I would say a lot less than half the field out on track. Most of them have parked it, so they're calling it a day for qualifying. Cause, there's very, very few people out on track. Cody Pride. He was a 10th up, showing us a 10th up, but he's lost it now in second place. I don't think he's going to really attack Boothby's time. It's interesting. It's interesting. It's going to be a very, very interesting race strategy-wise as well. It's going to be a challenge, I think, if the conditions are changing. But Cody Pride is 3/10 up. This lap could put him on pole position if he can maintain. He's just lost a little bit. He's now 2/10, but he's going to come across the line. I think it's going to be very, very close, Alex.
Oh, let's see, 21 thousandths between George Boothby and Cody Pride. And if you, Cody Pride's just come out with the best team name ever. Niels is very bad. Is really bad. Oh dear, you can see that there's no love lost there. Then. George Boothby securing pole position. That time stood for the entirety of the session. Cody Pride was the closest one, 21 thousandths off of that. Incredible pace from Cody Pride. If he had another half a tenth in the bag, Boothby would have been, I think he would have gone like, much respect, Cody, but inside he would have been kicking himself. So I could have found another half a tenth myself, possibly.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he's still circulating on track at the minute, but I don't think this time will count because it was after the checkered flag, and he's actually a 10th up, so he has got the time in him, so he could potentially match Boothby on pace, but we know racing is completely different to hot lapping for qualifying, especially if the conditions are the same. It is going to be a mountain to climb for 60 minutes because the concentration levels are going to be through the roof. With all these cars on the grid, the spray that's going to be kicked up from these cars tonight is going to be absolutely challenging to see the braking markers and your turning points on some of these corners. Because I always find, personal opinion, Silverstone is a little bit featureless. It's a flat circuit, so picking out those braking markers can be very, very difficult, and especially if someone's gone adrift and taken out a few of the marker boards as well, it could be very, very difficult in the spray in the opening laps if you're tucked in the mid pack or behind somebody.
That's the biggest thing. I mean, especially with the amount of downforce these GT3 cars have as well, Steve. You are going to see rooster tails galore going through into Cots for the first time. Now, for those that are new to not just Sim Racing Hub International, welcome, but also to sports car racing. One of the biggest things is that with quite a few tracks that you'll see on the calendar, Silverstone's no exception. We are using the national pit straight for starting, as opposed to the wing complex that you've just seen briefly on your screens. And that just brings like a bit of the... I remember when Formula One used to start off going, from Woodcote and Luffield through into Cops Corner, and you see that like the V8s absolutely roar their way through. It was an absolute glorious sight, and it was music to the ears, even though they were battered left, right, and senseless for about the best part of nearly 2 hours at the Grand Prix circuit. But that just shows the amount of variation you can have at Silverstone in terms of circuit setup.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I mean, and again, you know, I keep going on about the conditions. It is the conditions that are the leveler, because as much as the setup obviously plays a massive part in how you're going to get this car around, and like you alluded to earlier, maybe there's a few little different tactics of maybe just overfueling ever so slightly to give yourself that bit more, you know, weight shift and what have you, a bit more stability. Hopefully, there's the ECU to play with, traction controls to play with, brake power to play with. There's any multitude of things these guys can make adjustments on, and obviously, like we said before, the tyre temperatures, the brake temperatures. You know, there's so many variants out there that probably affect you so much more in the wet than they do in the dry, and it's going to be, you know, mega interesting to see what goes on. The guys are on the grid as we see, and the conditions are wet, and it doesn't look like it's going to dry up anytime soon, Alex.
Yeah, very much the case. So, a wet qualifying session, now a wet race in prospect. Just a minute or so to go until we get the formation lap underway. Steve, this is going to sort the tough, the real tough guys from the tough here tonight, because they'll have got a gauge of the conditions through quali. Now, this is where things, and there's one of my favourite sayings, you've heard it a few times, times are for show, points are to go. And that's going to be rather interesting, because the fact this will be the completion of the first third of this particular season in GT3 here on SRHI.
Yeah, absolutely. This is where we start to see, you know, the men from the boys, as it were. You know, it's very challenging conditions throughout. It's a challenging grid with the talent that's out there. Challenging conditions at a lot of the races so far, and we will start to now see, you know, who's got the pace and who hasn't, and who's going to be, you know, challenging for the championship, and they're going to start falling into position, as it were, and you know, maybe we'll start to see the contenders coming to the front, and the other guys falling by the wayside. We might start to see there's 2, 3, maybe 4 drivers that are in contention. Hopefully not, hopefully more. But yeah, once we see the points after tonight, I think we'll get a good idea of who's after the title.
Right, so your starting grid is as follows. George Boothby starts from pole position. Alongside him will be Cody Pride. Then it's Niels van der Kekelt, and then Klaas Wester with Dan Lenson rounding out the top 5. Sam Spenkelink is the next best of the rest, so to speak, in the 64 Porsche. Ahead of the number 12, our highest qualified semi-pro driver this evening, Bart Sverink in the Lexus RCF GT3. Then it's Clayt Barney in the 85, Tim Kroll in the 933, Goichea in the 127 McLaren. Then we've got Nam in the number 5 Lamborghini, Dave Jr. and Yannick Valenduk in the number 10 Mercedes and the number 301 Lamborghini, respectively. They ran out the top 13 positions. Patrick Vance in 14th, Tim Muris in the Honda rounds out the top 15 ahead of Adam van Drooinen, Matas Marques, Simon Zimmerman. You've got Dimitri Schenk. Then you've also got the number 46, and that is Christian Malcharek. One of one of 2 Slovakians alongside Marques in this field. Then we've got Van der Kraan, Bakker, and Van der Meer rounding out the top 23. And Steve, they're all thinking, what have we gotten ourselves into tonight?
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be very difficult as we're watching, you know, the guys now. They're going to be trying to put some heat into those tyres, and they're going to be trying to do their best to get everything, you know, as close to optimum as they can for these opening laps. It's going to be a challenge. Like we keep saying, you know, these opening laps, when they're all bunched up, the visibility is going to be the main thing that's going to be a problem. But as we see a car off already there, that's Cody Pride, I think, that's off onto the outside. So it's even the warm-up laps proving very challenging. Thankfully, collisions are off on the warm-up lap, and they'll be able to make his take his place back in line where he should be on that very important front row. But he'll be hoping that that's his one and only mistake tonight, I think.
Yeah, because George Boothby has had 2 wins out of 2. Could he make it 3 for 3 tonight here at Silverstone? before Season 3 GT3 heads to the Circuit de Catalunya Barcelona in just 2 weeks' time. And of course, we'll have the third round of the GT4 Sprint Championship Season 2 next week, this time next week at Imola. But yeah, I think, thank goodness, ghosting is pretty much on at this particular moment in time, because Cody Pride would be like going, as you said, that will be the only mistake that he'll want to make. But what he wants to do is to get the textbook jump on George Boothby and go into Copse Corner, possibly with an advantage, especially if he plants it around the outside and he has enough room to do so.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, with lining up alongside Boothby and Van der Kelt behind you and Wester even, you're not going to have much room for any errors, and especially not in these opening parts, because those guys aren't going to need 2 invitations to go through. They will take any opportunity they get, as we're starting to see the guys backing up now and start to form up 2 by 2. We are going to go green very, very soon.
Right, 60 minutes here at the home of British motorsport, Silverstone. It's Boothby and Pride on the front row, Van der Kelt and Wester rounding out the top 2 rows. Then it is Lenson, Spenkeling, Zwirink, Barney, Kroll and Nahm. That is your top 10 as round 3 of Season 3 GT3 here on simracinghubinternational.eu gets underway very, very shortly. Who is going to get the jump out of the quintet of Ferraris at the front of the field? They're all getting under 70 kph on the start phase, 2 by 2. Boothby will look to drop the hammer ahead of Cody Pride as they make their way towards the start-finish line. Are we ready, ladies and gentlemen? Are we steady? Well, without further ado, round 3 here at Silverstone for SRHI is green. It's underway. The green flags are waving in the air, and Boothby's got a good run. Pride trying to keep it around the outside. Van der Kelt has got a jump already, and they are literally going 2 by 2. There is a collision down the back part of the field, and that is sending cars left and right going through Copse Corner. But Boothby keeps ahead of Pride, with Van der Kelt just behind. Sem Spenkening's got in front of Dan Lenson as they're nearly going 3 abreast through into Maggots. That's very brave in these torrential conditions, and Cody Pride has a bit of a back end step away towards the right hand side, but Van der Kelt right up his back exhaust pipes. Oh my goodness me. We thought that the quintet of Ferraris would really start getting away. It's up the inside through Stowe Corner. That's Niels van der Kelt up the inside of Cody Pride, but Cody Pride manages to get the run, gets the traction down, because van der Kelt, I think, just outbraked himself going through Stowe Corner. Now into Vale. Now that was a Ferrari that was going exit stage right, and I think that was probably Klaas Wester, if memory serves me correctly. But at the moment, oh my goodness me, Boothby is held on. That's Dan Lenson coming out of there at the moment. Now they're coming onto the main pit straight, the international pit straight, coming through Vale. Dan Lenson ended up going exit stage left, but Cody Pride doing his best to hang on to George Boothby, with Niels van der Kelt really fired up. The Dutchman wanting to fly around these wet weather conditions, and at the moment Cody Pride has an answer, but George Boothby has just been able to keep that narrow advantage. And one of the biggest things here, Steve, that just showed us, Pride goes rally crossing and chopping the grass with that front splitter. That is going down the Wellington straight all the way down to Brooklands. I think Van der Kelt smells blood.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, these guys have already opened up a little bit of a gap to the rest of the field, but I mean, the rest of the field are battling hard, as we can see Patrick Wanston, the picture-in-picture at the bottom, trying to go around the outside there. That's not going to work. And obviously in the opening laps, they're trying to attack and defend at the same time in what are treacherous conditions. But Boothby's got his head down. He's got an 8/10 lead at the minute, and Cody Pride just making a couple of mistakes early on. I think Van der Kelt will be looking to make a move, as actually Van der Kelt was a full 4-wheel drift there, and he's gone very wide, as we can just see in the bottom of the picture. So the guys behind Boothby are gifting this one to him. They are making the mistakes. Boothby's keeping it clean, keeping it tidy, and keeping it on the track, more importantly, and extending that lead at the moment.
Yeah, Van der Kelt really getting up close and personal to Cody Pride, and this is allowing Sem Spenkeling. We've seen him very capable in the Dutch driver from Dark Sky Racing, as Van der Kelt now buries the throttle. They're down the hanger straight, heading towards Stowe. And now Van der Kelt pulls to the right-hand side of Cody Pride, looks up the inside of the number 2. The Dutchman tries to seize the advantage, but going through into Vale. Pride has got the run. He goes onto the wet curbing on the left-hand side, manages to outbrake Van der Kelt going through into Vale. Oh no, a little touch from behind. That nearly unsettles the back bumper of the back end of Cody Pride. That has sent him a little bit wide going through Club Corner. And that was, in some respects, I think, a little bit of a bump to pass there from Niels van der Kerkhout. But as they say, one good turn does deserve another, except when it is a non-contact race, gents. Thank you very much. And I think Cody Pride, he went a bit sideways. Van der Kerkhout went a bit sideways there. These two are trying to keep that. What they've got to stop doing now is fighting. They've got to start closing on Boothby as we go to Bart Sveding, who's got Ingenwerth and Patrick Vance just up ahead of them. Oh my goodness me! Now this is a battle between both Lexuses. This is going through Village and into the left-hander at the loop.
Contact!
Oh, turnaround there for Patrick Vance, courtesy of Bart Sveding, and Ingenwerth goes through. Marcel V already up to P15 in the Yachtly. I think I've just coined a new trademark there, Steve, haven't I?
I'm just going to say it's going to take a little bit of getting used to. Is the Yachtly? I think I've just about got used to the Boatley, but the Yachtly is a new one, and I'll have to train my brain.
I know. Don't worry. I'll just keep reminding you, buddy. But Dave Jr. at the moment, he has got Arwin Nam in the number 5, just behind James Warren, and the other PPR esports car. He's up to P23. He's just got past Zimmerman, and that looks to be one of the that's Svedink just behind. Well, that's actually Svedink who's just got past. So Warren looks to be making some headway here in the number 1 PPR esports Ferrari. So Svedink all the way down in 23rd position as a result of that clash between him and Patrick Vance, who rounds out the top 20 at the moment. So that's definitely exit stage left from Bart Svedink, and that's coming through the exit of Cox Corner going into Maggots. Lexus not as dominant as we thought it might be, but we're only 5 minutes in, Steve. There's still plenty to happen.
Yeah, absolutely, plenty to happen, and Cody Pride doing a good job now of hanging on to Van der Kerkhout. I think things are settling down in the cockpit of that Ferrari, and he's just trying to gather it all up and remain consistent. We know Cody has got it in him. He can do it. He's a quick driver, and he's a race winner. He just needs to try and control the car, control his aggression and his enthusiasm, and just try and be consistent and just concentrate rather than maybe attacking Kerkhout now. Just hang on to the back of him. We know Kerkhout's got the pace, and he just needs to really stick with him. Just apply pressure. I think in these conditions, the best form of attack is pressure. As we see Cody, again, he's over-egging it in the braking zone slightly, and he's costing himself time by having to get out of, change direction to avoid contact with Van der Kerkhout, and he just needs to apply the pressure, drive as close as he can without making contact, just keep himself large in those mirrors and let Van der Kerkhout make the mistake.
Yeah, and that's one thing that Van der Kerkhout does not want to make. He doesn't want to make any errors whatsoever, whether they be unforced or through no fault of his own. And this is where they've really got to start pushing, because when you look at it, Cody Pride in this championship wants to get on level peggings with Van der Kerkhout and Boothby. But Boothby has got the initial advantage. He's got a maximum score so far of 70 points. He wants to make it 3 for 3 going into Barcelona. And to be honest with you, I know the competitive nature of George Boothby. You and I both know that. And when Boothby's on fire, as Cody Pride goes very wide coming out of Copse Corner, oh my goodness me, if that had hit any of that curbing going through Copse, I think he might have ended up sideways and exiting stage left into the barriers. But Cody Pride, very, very lucky to hang on to that one. But he's keeping Van der Kerkhout honest. But one of the biggest things that I'm surprised about, Steve, is the fact that Sam Spenkelink was 1.6 seconds behind these two. They've now pulled a further 7/10 of him, and that gap looks to possibly be increasing. That's now nearly 2.6 seconds. So Sam Spenkelink, I think, is looking not for damage limitation, but looking for a steady, consistent haul of points.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Spenkelink is lapping faster than the driver in 5th place, so he's doing enough to pull away from 5th, but he's not doing enough to keep up with these guys. And while the weather is a good leveller for car performance, Silverstone is not favourable for that Porsche. It's not the quickest car around here, so Sem is up against it with that car. slightly easier with the conditions, but if you can call these conditions easy for anybody, as we see Van der Kekelt a little bit sideways, Cody Pride having to get off the throttle as he was understeering ever so slightly, but he's very aggressive in the braking zone and just really missing the apex a little bit because of it. He just needs to tidy things up. But what is interesting is Boothby doesn't seem to be stretching that lead very fast at all. If at all in the last couple of laps, it seems to have stabilised a little bit. Now these two guys have stopped battling as hard.
Yeah, very much the case. I mean, I've just been looking at the cars with the lowest amount of torque, and I mean, that's especially a very, very key point on the straight line speed of these cars. The Porsche has the lowest of any vehicle, 525 Newton meters. The car that is second to that is the Lamborghini Huracan GT3 Evo, 542. So when you've got cars like the Ferraris, the McLarens that are pushing 700, one of the cars that is not represented in this field, and I'm rather surprised about it, the Aston Martin, that has 700 Newton meters of torque from its 4-litre twin-turbo V8 engine, that's front engine. That's a car that when you get it up to speed and it's down a straight line, you know that the Aston is going to be a pretty good car. I mean, especially when you look at tracks like Spa-Francorchamps, Monza, for instance. And here at Silverstone, it's a track that would really, really suit the Aston in terms of straight line speed, and also be very good in the braking zones, because obviously, okay, we know that cars aren't, when they say front engined in a GT3 car, it's definitively not 100% front engine, but it's near as damn it, because of the way they put the engines in these cars to work out the centre of gravity in terms of the perfect balance for the vehicle's characteristics.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's just interesting. We were talking earlier on in qualifying about the Lamborghinis. We've got two of them running together here on track, but both of them are coming under pressure from the Honda as well, and another underused car which we spoke about. Tim was very much closer than he is now a few corners ago. He seems to have lost a little bit in the Honda, but I think he's got a little bit of pace, and looking at his lap times, I think in fact he is lapping quite a good 2-3 tenths faster than these guys in front of him, so I don't expect it'll be long before he's back on the back of the Lamborghini and pressuring again.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of the torque differential, I mean, it's got over... Oh, look at the amount of torque that thing's got. Over 100 Newton meters between the Honda and the Lamborghini. So, Vanderduck now coming under fire. Tim Muris not too far behind him. And you can just see they're coming through Village, now into the loop. And I'm sure that as soon as they come out of Aintree, Muris will have a good run. Now, obviously, in terms of the displacement of these cars, it's a big difference when you talk about that. Out of all the GT3 cars on Assetto Corsa Competizione, the lowest displacement is for the Honda 3.5 litre twin-turbo V6. And then you look at the naturally aspirated, highly aggressive exhaust notes of the 5.2 litre naturally aspirated V10 of that Lamborghini. So there's always... and now that's a bit of a mistake there from Niels van der Kekelt. Going through cops, into maggots they go. Van der Kekelt squirming all over the place in that number 47 Ferrari, but still managing to hold off Cody Pride. If Van der Kekelt had gone a little bit further to the left-hand side through cops, I think Cody Pride would have had him right there and then.
Absolutely, yeah, and that's what I was talking about earlier. Van der Kekelt doesn't make many mistakes, but in these conditions they will make one or two. If Cody Pride is looking like he potentially got a disconnect there as he fires off into the scenery, that's not what we want to see, and I really hope he hasn't, because potentially I think we're going to go back to the holding screen, because I think there's a server issue. It's looking like everybody's disconnected.
So that could mean a full restart there, which we can only apologise. These things do happen. It can occasionally happen from a technical perspective. So please bear with us, ladies and gentlemen. A real shame about that, because that was definitely kicking off like a good one there. So I think with that being said, we'll be back. We'll be back just after a couple of minutes' time. So stay tuned.
I've muted TeamSpeak on the stream, so we're all good. Right, okay. So did the pit wall live go down then? Right, okay. Has anybody said anything in chat? Nobody said anything in chat. I can't see why I would have two computers that would disconnect, but let me. Yeah, the server's not even listed at the moment. I'm just going to try the other PC. If we do go back into it, no mid-session join, so it's listed on one of my PCs but not on the other. Hang on, it's letting me join as a spectator now. Okay, so we are back in the server, but we're only going to be on one PC by the looks of it, mate. But that's not going to be a problem. Yeah, by the way, I'll set that up now. I'll put pit link up before we go back on there. It appears that it's just disconnected me on both PCs for whatever reason. It doesn't seem like they've had an issue, but anyway, SRHI. That should be connected now, mate. Is it working? It's working for me. Are you ready to go back live then, buddy? We'll just have to do what we can. I, I have no idea, mate. I think that'd have to be a question for Pitwall Live on Discord because I don't think it's the SRH guy's fault either. Because like I say, I've just put it up on SimSport Solutions and it's working away. Is it? Yeah, I can't. I'm gonna say I can't go onto theirs, but I can put it on ours. Okay, ready to go live in 3, 2, 1.
Well, our apologies there, ladies and gentlemen. We did have an issue with a server disconnect from the broadcasting side, but we are back here at Silverstone, and we can still see that the battle has continued once again with Niels van der Kerkelt and Cody Pride. But in the meantime, the lead for George Boothby has now expanded to 2.5 seconds. But Steve, one of the biggest things that I'm noticing here since the race got underway just under 20 minutes ago, that the track temperature has now started to drop.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's good to see. I mean, obviously we had that slight technical issue there. We've come back, and it's pretty much as things were. Obviously, Boothby's he's extended that lead to 2.5 seconds as it stands. Cody Pride doing his best to hang on to van der Kerkelt, and that gap seems to be yo-yoing as each driver seems to be making just very small mistakes, allowing Boothby to extend that lead. Spenkelink, dropping back further as we see Van der Kerkelt going really wide there. He's going to really have to watch for the track cuts, because those could mount up and we could see some drive-throughs before the end of this evening. But yeah, Spenkelink now over 8 seconds back, but 2.5 seconds clear of 5th place. Temperatures, yep, it is dropping. It is going to throw another problem at the drivers, as the tyre pressures they had set at the start of the race for the temperatures they had at the start of the race may not be perfect at this time, but you know, they're all in the same yachtly, as it were, and they're going to have to do the best they can do with what they've got.
I'm going to have to trademark that saying now, but as you're a good mate, I can let that one slide, not a problem at all. But look, I mean, coming back to Pride and Van der Kerkelt, he's coming under fire again from Cody Pride. But then there are points on the circuit where you can see that Cody Pride loses a little bit of time to Niels van der Kerkelt, as they're now coming through onto the again. That's through through Club. So Cody Pride seems to be going a bit to the left-hand side, coming out of it whilst putting the power down. They now go through into Abbey, into Farm Curve before the right-hander at Village. And Van der Kerkelt, for the moment, seems to have the number of Cody Pride, which just happens to be the number 2. But George Boothby, you know, he did a 2-minute 9.2. Then Van der Kerkelt, previous lap before that, did a 2-minute 9.3. Cody Pride running in the 2.9.6s. It's been rather even between these three in terms of pure lap pace, Steve. But the biggest thing that I spot, and I spy with my little eye, something beginning with B, back markers.
Yeah, absolutely, and they always throw a challenge out, no matter how obliging they can be, because again, they throw the spray up, they alter your visibility. There is that little bit of uncertainty about where people are going to be and how you're going to tackle them when it comes to overtaking, but yeah, it'll be how these guys handle it. And we know Van der Kerkelt and Pride are the top drivers. They should be able to handle it as long as the back markers don't do anything unexpected. You see Cody Pride going deep. Last lap it was Van der Kerkelt, this lap it was Cody Pride. So these guys are matching each other for times, but also matching. Look at that sideways from Van der Kerkelt there, as he just changed direction slightly too aggressively, but all's fair, and he's got you know, he's kept it tidy and he's kept it on the track, so he's all good.
A drifting Dutchman, not the Flying Dutchman, is what I need to re-nickname Niels van der Kerkelt after that particular incident. But you can see how close Cody Pride is, going down the hanger straight through into Stoke Corner. Cody Pride trying to force a mistake from Niels van der Kerkelt, as Yannick Valenduk in the number 301 Lamborghini Huracan GT3 Evo now takes his pit stop. It looks to be the case. And as far as I'm aware, there is no mandated pit stop window here. But yeah, Van der Kerkelt, definitely the drifting Dutchman of SRHI, isn't he?
Yeah, absolutely. And again, look at Cody Pride there. I mean, these, if they're gaining any small time advantage by doing that and they're not lifting off, then they will be getting track cut warnings. You get 3 warnings, and on your 4th one you will be served with a drive-through that you need to take within 3 laps, and if you don't, then it's a disqualification. So it'll be interesting to see who is going to get these any drive-throughs. We don't want to see them, but obviously we also want to see the guys keeping it within track limits and not gaining any unfair advantages. But at the moment, Cody Pride is doing a good job to hang on to the back of Van der Kerkelt. has to be said, they are both making very, very small mistakes, but it's all, it's all good so far. There's no collisions, and he's just soaking up the pressure as Cody Pride dishes it out.
Well, they're also soaking up the wet weather, virtually speaking, here at Silverstone. 36 minutes and 18 seconds still to go. Boothby has now the best part of a 2.7 second lead over Niels van der Kerkelt and Cody Pride. So it's a Ferrari top three. Sam Spenkelik is now 10.5 seconds behind this duo here as they now go flying their way through. And that will be through into Cop's corner. Cody Pride, he absolutely went for it there. They've got one of the Lamborghinis just up ahead, but you could see how committed Cody Pride was. He didn't go completely wide, but he went wide enough so he still would have two wheels on the tarmac, Steve. And that was where Van der Kerkelt went, oh, he's giving me the hurry up. He doesn't want to just go after George. He wants to pass me. Now the moment strikes, hanger straight, down towards Stowe. Cody Pride going towards the outside of Niels van der Kerkelt as they sweep into the right-hander. Van der Kerkelt still has the run on Cody Pride, but he's getting a bit closer, going through into Vale before the complex at Club. And Cody Pride looking to send it up the inside of Niels van der Kerkelt, thinks better of it this time. In these wet weather conditions, I think Cody Pride could be sizing up Niels van der Kerkelt within the next couple of laps to get past him for second and then go hunting down Boothby. As again coming out of Club, he goes wide.
Yeah, absolutely. He's pushing his Cody and equally so is Van der Kerkelt. But just seeing in the bottom picture there, that is Patrick Wanst, who's just completed his pit stop, but it would appear he's been speeding in the pit links. He now has a stop go 30 as well, so that's pretty much race over for Patrick. Obviously, he'll keep going, try and salvage some points, but the result's not going to go his way tonight. And these guys, actually, Patrick is the guy that's just ahead of these chaps, so he's going to be going a lap down very, very soon.
Well, that's not what you want to see, but these things do happen. As I just saw a little bit of a wide off-track excursion again. That was from Cody Pride, and that was coming out of Aintree through into Brooklands off of the Wellington Straight. And Pride and Van der Kerkelt still at loggerheads. Boothby at the moment, he's just on a 2-minute 9.1. He's absolutely thriving in these wet weather conditions. So at the moment, in term, well, we'll just quickly, sorry to interject there, Steve, but the top 10, we've got Boothby, this is overall, we'll go to the semi-pros after that. So we've got Boothby, Van der Kerkelt, Pride, Spenkelink, Lenson, Barney, Wester, Junior, Naam and Muris. Tim Kroll leads the way in semi-pro ahead of Dimitri Schenk with Damien de Keyser, Frans van der Linderen. Then you've also got the 236 of Benjamin Simmers. And then follow that up with the 313 Nissan of Patrick Treffers, and then the 622 of Tim Nabor in the Audi. But Boothby has just been absolutely a rocket ship at the moment, Steve, hasn't he?
Yeah, as we expect from Boothby, he gets the pole position, he gets the good start, and from lights out, he's pretty much, He's gapped them. He's just gone. He hasn't done anything silly. He didn't push too hard. We haven't really seen, dare I say, him make any mistakes, although he's not had a lot of camera time because of where he is and the gap he's got. But he's keeping it smooth. He's keeping it on the track, and we can see in the background that's the gap. That's the visual gap back to Van der Kerkelt, Cody Pride, who, it has to be said, must be starting to trip each other up again. I mean, we saw them settle down into a pace where that gap sort of stabilised, and Cody wasn't really attacking Van der Kerkelt, but then as soon as he starts attacking again, that's it. It's pretty much back to losing a little bit of time on the leader. And just looking at the lap times, they are losing around about 3/4 of a second. On the last lap they lost to the leader, so that gap is just extending all the time. This is very much Boothby's race to lose, even at this early stage. We're not quite halfway through yet, but he's got this one in the bag if he keeps doing what he's doing.
Yeah, just seen another couple of pit stops being completed. Ingenvarth and Marcel V have just had their pit stops, but one of the battles that's really starting to catch my eyes now is the battle between the number 9 Honda of Tim Muris and then Tim Kroll, who is leading semi-pro. He's 0.8 of a second off in the Lexus, so I'm just wondering if we can switch to that battle for just a moment. And there is Muris. And just behind, I think, who is that? That might be Marquez, I believe. So they're just going past the 31st, I think, place. It could be Michael Hartmann, that did that bit of grass track expedition through quali. Now the Lexus is still a pretty strong car, and that is Matas Marquez, who's now diving into the pits in the number 20. But Tim Kroll at the moment trying to keep Tim Muris very, very honest in the number 9 Honda.
Yeah, absolutely. It's battles all the way, and the Lexus is usually a pretty good car in the wet conditions. But the Honda's a bit of an unknown entity. I have driven it a little bit, but I've not spent a lot of time behind the wheel, so I'm not quite, not quite sure how good it is in the wet conditions. But certainly, Kroll's having to work hard to catch up to Muris and stay with him, indeed, because that gap seems to be it's another one of those gaps that's going up and down a little bit, but it's very much advantage Muris at the moment.
Yeah, so Tim Kroll looking to close in on Tim Muris. Some other battles that we're seeing. I'm seeing a battle now for 19th and 20th. This is for class position, but also, was until Benjamin Simmons decided to pit. We're just literally on the halfway point. That puts Tim Nybauer up into 18th position. Matas Marquez is now pretty much, I think, completed his pit stop in the number 20 Lexus. Oh, now there was a Lamborghini that just went completely into the barriers off of Club Corner. Does that mean the yellow flags will be out? That'll be one of the Lamborghinis. So someone has had a massive moment. And I'm just wondering, could that be possibly the 301 of Yannick Valenduk, if memory serves me correctly now? Yannick down in 34th position. And I think that could have been him that might have ended up 180 degrees the wrong way there, Steve.
Yeah, very much so. Could well have been, but yeah, just very, very easy to do in these conditions. It's harder to keep it going the right way than anywhere else. The standing water. I mean, the track is still saying just wet at the moment. It does get worse than this within the simulation of ACC, but at the moment it's staying pretty much drivable. The guys are doing a fantastic job staying on track. They're doing everything they can, and they're certainly not hanging around. Everybody out there seems to be pushing hard. There's lots of little battles here and there. There's no they're not as close as they might be at some of the drier conditions. We just start seeing them spread out a little bit, and we're not finding the really, really close battles. But Van der Kerkel is in the pits as we speak, and it looks like Cody Pride has got that second place. So Cody Pride now is probably going to push as hard as he can for the next lap or so, or do you think he will pit on the next lap?
Yeah, so good evening to Chris. Good buddy Pinchy's watching as well. Good evening, Chris. Hope you're keeping well, fella. So Van der Kerkel drops out of the top 5. Klaas Vester has also pitted. So has Tim Muris. Damian de Kaiser has also pitted. And just looking at the bottom there, 19th and 20th positions, Matas Marquez, and also you've got Marvin Ingenberth. Were the highest place drivers with a green square by their name, but that now has now changed to Niels van der Kerkel, who's going to drop out of the top 10, as will Klaas Vester and Tim Muris. So we've got some fights on our hand, but also the biggest question here is not if, it's when George Boothby decides to pit. I think he might have had that car set up nicely. So you know what we talked about earlier on in the race, Steve, where we talked about maybe heavy fueling as a strategy. Then also you talked about traction map and also fuel map, and that can be rather crucial. If you're running at map 1, you can still have that pace. That's pretty good.
Yeah, and there is Cody Pride going into the pits now, as he comes to almost a complete stop there to make sure he doesn't speed in the pit lane. That will have cost him a bit of time, but obviously won't have gained him a stop-go 30. So very conservative entry from Cody there, but it's going to be interesting now when he pits, what time it costs him in the pits, and where he comes out in relation to this man on the main screen now, Van der Kerkel, who will have come out of those pits and he will have pushed as hard as he can, because it will be in the back of his mind that Cody was within half a second of him when he went into the pits, and if Cody's put a couple of good laps in, that gap could have disappeared and he could find himself at the wrong end of Cody Pride's bumper. He could be behind him.
Yeah, so as you can see in the picture-in-picture, Cody Pride is still in the pits. here's Niels van der Kerkelt. And this is going to be rather interesting how quickly, as now Boothby will exit the pits. And this could be very, very interesting indeed. Pride now leaves pit lane. Right at the end of the pit lane boxes he was. So this could allow. Now, the biggest thing here is that Niels van der Kerkelt is up to speed. And he's gone wide coming out of Copse Corner.
Yeah, Cody Pride's jumped him.
Yeah. So Cody Pride has jumped in the pits. I don't think probably might have taken as much fuel. But one of the biggest things now is that Niels van der Kerkelt's tyres will be a little bit hotter in terms of temperature, as will the brakes be. Cody Pride has had a massive moment, off-track excursion. And now that is the chink in the armour that Niels van der Kerkelt sees, as he's got the number 35 Porsche just up ahead. That's Nard Cox, and I think he's got one of the Lambos just up ahead. That could be... that's actually the 5th place car. So not only is Niels van der Kerkelt chasing down Arwin Naam, he's going to chase down Cody Pride, because Sam Spenkelink and Tim Kroll have yet to pit on lap number 16.
Yeah, absolutely. And that gap between Cody Pride and Boothby as well. I mean, Boothby was like good 9 seconds at least, I think, in the lead. So Cody Pride has really had a demon pit stop. I can only hope he has put enough fuel in. I mean, did he start the race heavy and not have to put any extra fuel in? Maybe there was no damage whatsoever to repair. Or maybe that very cautious, what looked like a very cautious pit entry was perfect entry, and then he got a perfect exit, because he's jumped Van der Kerkelt. He's closed the gap to Boothby, I believe. So it's all gone well for Cody Pride in that pit stop.
Yeah, Niels van der Kerkelt just under 0.6 of a second behind Arwin Naam. And the thing is that when you have an Italian thoroughbred that has pretty much nigh on 160 Newton meters more of torque in its pocket in that V8, that 5-litre V10 naturally aspirated Lamborghini Huracan GT3 Evo will be a sitting duck, even in these torrential wet weather conditions. But that looks to be that Arwin Naam was actually going a bit slowly. He's now pulled into the pits. That has now released Niels van der Kerkelt. It looks like they've got Hutman just up ahead between the pair of them. And so Tim Kroll has also pitted. Arwin Naam has pitted. Van der Kraan and Scepter yet to pit. Van Mellis in the number 11. And that is one of the many Lexus cars that are on this grid, as there is Boothby circumnavigating his way through. And that gap between Boothby and Pride is now extended again. But the biggest thing here is that how quickly can Niels van der Kerkelt get that gap down from nearly 2 3/4 of a sec, 2 seconds and 3/4. I'm trying to get my words out right. It didn't quite work, did it?
But yeah, the interesting thing is that gap is sort of yo-yoing a little bit. I think Boothby's going to start to find his feet, and it'll be business as usual when he starts to stretch the gap again. Because on that last lap, Cody Pride was indeed around 4/10 quicker than Boothby. Boothby was in a lot more traffic. I think Cody Pride had a little bit of a cleaner run. And that's what's going to start to affect some of these guys now, is this traffic. As you said earlier on, it's the back markers, and it's that uncertainty, and it's having to go off the racing line. There is no dry line, but there certainly is more. Like, as we see one of the Hondas spinning there right in front of Cody Pride. Now Cody Pride had to back off there, and we can just see Van der Kerkelt has taken that advantage, and he's closed that gap right up now. So it's...
Oh, that could be Chris Hill. I think that's Chris Hill that might have just spun it there. Because I'm just trying to see where Tim Muris is on the circuit. He's now coming through Vale. So, yeah, that could be a bit of drama. But look, Cody Pride has got... Look, Niels van der Kerkelt... Look at the front end of Cody Pride's car. That has got more scuffs on it than a keyed car at this particular moment in time. I think Cody Pride's had a moment, and Niels van der Kerkelt is right on him. This could decide second place very shortly. And if that does happen, if Pride's got damage, Van der Kerkelt he touches the curbs and nearly goes sideways coming out of Luffield, does Van der Kerkelt. But this this gives the opportunity to Van der Kerkhout to try and go after Boothby. And with the gap now increased to 6.1 seconds between Boothby and Pride, as Pride again goes wide. Pride's having an absolute mare out there right now. I think he wants this race to be over quicker than just under 22 minutes.
Yeah, absolutely. There's battles appearing now up and down the field as the guys. We can see that long line of green dashes in the timing tower on the left-hand side there, meaning all these guys have completed their pit stops and they've come out of the pits, and it's thrown a few of them closer together. And there's battles up and down the field, as we can see in the background there. One of the Lexuses looking like he's wanting to have a go as well. It's all very, very close, and the battling is very, very intense in what is difficult conditions. As we see the Lexus now really trying to attack that Audi in front of it.
Yeah, there's dramas again for Cody Pride and Niels van der Kerkhout. No matter what happens, no matter what position they're in, if one's in second, the other one's in third, it stays pretty much like a stalemate in chess. But the thing is that on that previous lap number 17, Cody Pride lost all of his time in sector 2, Steve. He did a 2 minute 12.3. Van der Kerkhout did a 2 minute 10.0. So I think Cody Pride has just got to try and hang on if he can. So you know that's going to be the key point for him, as it looks like the 253 Van der Kraan has now pitted, but Cody Pride is really starting to struggle. I think Niels van der Kerkhout wants to have that second place, because what that will do for him is keep him within striking distance of George Boothby, even though Boothby is 5 seconds up the road from Cody Pride. But the biggest thing is the backmarker traffic again starting to play dramas, not just for Boothby, but it's going to cause problems for Van der Kerkhout and for Cody Pride. And it just depends on how quickly they can circumnavigate their way through it. As Pride goes very, very wide, and that's going to allow Van der Kerkhout up the inside through Woodcote. Niels van der Kerkhout retakes second place on lap number 19 of what has been an absolutely saturated Silverstone spectacular this evening.
Yeah, as we said, it's just those mistakes, and we can see Cody Pride's been running wide lots and lots throughout this race, and at that point there, when he got onto the grass, he did very, very well, it has to be said, to keep the car going in the right direction, but he will have lost traction, he will have lost drive, and that's what handed the position to Van der Kerkhout. Van der Kerkhout didn't have to work too hard to force that mistake. Cody Pride is absolutely pushing very hard, and he's been drifting wide and making those small unforced errors all evening so far, but he's still running in a very, very creditable third place in a top class field of drivers.
Yeah, very much the case, but still, now the gap between Niels van der Kerkhout and Cody Pride has extended to just under 1.1 seconds, and now that Niels van der Kerkhout has been effectively unleashed through the mistake that was made. There's a couple of back markers up in front of Niels van der Kerkhout. And that is not, I think as we would say here, that's not cricket here, Steve, is it, here at Silverstone at this particular moment in time?
No, I mean, there's a back marker there. We just see one going exit stage left, and I'm not sure if he was just trying to get completely out of the way, but yeah, there he is, just in the corner of the picture, still running round. I think he's just trying to stay off the track because he's running way down the order and won't want to affect anybody's outcome. Generally, the back markers are doing a good job, but yeah, very, very difficult, as we can just see battling now. That's Valenduc in the Lamborghini, putting some serious pressure on Workman in the Lexus ahead, and I'll just listen to that Lamborghini, don't they sound absolutely awesome?
If you put that side by side with an Audi with the same power plant in it, I can tell you one thing, it sounds very, very different indeed. As we go on board with Yannick Valenduc in the 301 Lamborghini Huracan GT3 Evo, and he's closing on the number 444, that is of Dennis Bergman in the Mode 11 racing car. The other one was Bas van Melis, I believe, who's in the number 11, and that's the one with the sort of camo-esque livery that we've come to like and marvel at in some respects. But you can just see how much spray and how much correction. So let's stay on board with Yannick Valenduc. He gets a bit of a tank slapper there. Oh, well done, Mr. Cameraman. Well caught as always. But yeah, that was a big old hairy moment. That was definitely code brown for Yannick Valenduc, and then some right there. And that was going through the exit of club. wow.
But look at the visibility as well when they're hammering it down the straights. I mean, you know, it's so difficult. I mean, you can hardly make out the Lexus in front through the spray, but that Lamborghini does just look an absolute handful. I mean, even now, look at that. You can hardly see the Lexus in front. It is just a wall of spray. It's that rooster tail of water that just takes away all your visibility, and now you're looking for your braking markers and you're driving on memory most of the time here, and just getting that turning right and trying to get those keep those lap times consistent and apply some pressure to the car in front. Absolutely, these guys will be sweating with the concentration levels this evening.
Yeah, Marcel V. Oh, now that's interesting. Marcel V has just ended up in the pits, but Cody Pride has closed back up. Oh, ladies and gentlemen, ding ding, round however many you want to call it. Not round 2, because it's definitely not round 2. I think it's round at least 3 or 4 by my count. Marcel V, I've just noticed, is in the pits, whether possibly for track limits. Now, I would not have expected that in something as fortuitous as a Boatley or a Yachtley, whichever you might want to call it. I'm going to call it a Yachtley from now on. That's my catchphrase on that particular one. But for Cody Pride to have that massive moment that allowed Niels van der Kerkelt to go back up the inside of him to take P2, Cody Pride is not letting van der Kerkelt breathe at all.
No, he's not. I mean, and that's what he's got to do. As we've said all along this evening, it's all about applying pressure whenever you're racing. You know, the overtakes come through racecraft, and it's not just driving, it's just applying the pressure and remaining consistent and looming very large in your opponent's mirrors, and that's what Cody's got to do. And we've seen van der Kerkelt do it to Cody, and Cody's made a couple of errors. Van der Kerkelt has been making a few little mistakes. The conditions, it has to be said, are very, very difficult this evening, but the only way that Cody is going to get past is by making van der Kerkelt make errors, unforced errors, as it's just, it just seems to be so difficult, and he's not really going to get an overtake on out-and-out power. It's going to be very difficult to outbrake anybody into any corners this evening. It is just about applying pressure and trying to get past, with making them forcing errors from the other drivers.
Indeed. But Cody Pride again. He's threading the eye of the needle. Is Cody Pride. And I think his team name is absolutely one of the funniest I think I've seen in quite a long time. But he's had a bit of a sideways moment. Back end stepped out to the left-hand side for Cody Pride. And again, he goes wide coming out of club. But Niels van der Kerkelt just doesn't seem to be able to break away. George Boothby's gone off into the distance like a scalded cat from a hot tin roof. Again, for the third race in succession. But, Cody Pride is a bit of a moment. Going through, and that's not what you want right there, and that would have been going through Village and into the loop. So Cody Pride has just got to watch his P's and Q's around about the next 14 minutes. There is the yellow flag out on circuit, but they've got now this battle here. This is Klaas Vester stuck in the middle of Marvin Ingenwerth, that's a 7.5 from Vester up the inside of the Mercedes. That's rather cheeky, and the Mercedes tries to go around the outside, but Vester's going to push him wide. Ingenwerth has to step out of it. Oh, that was brazen, and then some as, exit stage left going through. That's going through. Oh, my goodness me, coming out of club as Ingenwerth gets the switch back through into Abbey on Klaas Vester, and Tim Kroll just gets hung out to dry a little bit more.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Tim Kroll's just there in playing a watching brief, isn't he? He's waiting for these guys to make a mistake because they are going at it hard. I mean, that was a lick the stamp and send it move and a half. It was all clean. He got through and he managed to get the car turned in, albeit went very deep into the corner and got the initial move done, but then came straight back under attack again and forego the position again.
Well, would you believe it, after 47 minutes of battling again, Cody Pride now in the slipstream of Niels van der Kerkelt. They go one way, they then go the other. Cody Pride looking to send it up the inside. Well, he's looking towards the outside of Stowe. That's brazen, and then some. Getting the switch back through. Van der Kerkelt drifts a little bit wide. Cody Pride goes side by side with the number 47 and up through the inside. Goes Cody Pride to retake second position, but Niels van der Kerkelt back at his rear bumper. Cody Pride had to lift off the throttle there. Great spontaneous battling between these two. True racing respect. Oh my goodness me, that's a heart attack, and then some going through Vale and Club from them two.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. That was absolutely barnstorming, was that? They were side by side through 3-4 corners there, swapping positions into the braking zones, keeping it clean, giving each other racing respect. Fantastic driving from those guys and a brilliant show for us to watch. And its positions resumed as were. Cody Pride still in third place, still having to attack Van der Kerkelt. And Van der Kerkelt, it has to be said, is doing a fantastic job of soaking up any pressure and all the moves that Cody Pride can throw at him. He's just not flustering him at this moment in time. We have got just over 11 and a half minutes more or less to go, so there's still plenty of time for a move, but I think Cody, the desperation might start to take hold now, because he could do with this strong finish tonight.
Yeah, very much the case. I think the frustration started a bit earlier than what it is now, to be honest with you, Steve, because no matter what he's tried to do to get one up on Niels van der Kerkelt has had a response. And that just shows the caliber of said driver, Niels van der Kerkelt, who's competed in so many different championships. He's also a regular name on SimGrid as well. And to be honest with you, so is Cody Pride. The thing is that at the end of the day, these two have been at loggerheads. Boothby up the road by 8.3 seconds after what is now 22 laps completed. And you can see that Cody Pride's lag spike, I think, just went a bit too overzealous there, I think. I'm not too sure if we're having a problem there at this particular moment in time, but I think we've had a slight issue, a technical issue from the broadcast feed. So we'll be back in just a couple of moments' time, ladies and gentlemen. And hopefully we'll be back for the next few minutes, the last on Sim Racing Hub International.
Cheers, Alex. Yeah, seems to have disconnected again. Must be a server issue tonight. Yeah, I mean, it could be ACC. It'd be interesting to see if any of the drivers are having any issues. Hopefully not, but yeah, sorry, I should have told you I'd put it on the solutions one, just then, because I thought that'll fix it. But yeah, obviously there's an issue with their pit wall live, but who knows? We will get pit wall live up. We'll get the. Okay, you ready to go live? I've got a feedback up.
Right, ladies and gentlemen, we're back, reconnected once again, and still, I know a lot of people will probably think, why are you concentrating on this battle between Niels and Cody? Well, for the last 50 plus minutes, this has been rather enthralling. We're on lap number 24 of this race. Boothby on course to making it 3 successive victories in 3 races before round 4 of the championship, which takes place at the Circuit de Catalunya, Barcelona on the 30th of March, just 2 weeks from tonight. Of course, we have got GT4 action with Tim Fulbrook back on lead commentary, joining Steve Proudly once again for Autodromo Enzo Edino Ferrari at Imola next week, which will be the 23rd of March. We've also got some upcoming endurance racing here on Sim Racing Hub International. The 24th of April sees the Kyle Army 8 hours, and that should be one hell of an endurance race itself. So you know what? Things are getting really spicy, to be honest with you, Steve. I've seen that Lenson is closing on Barney for P5, and then also Klaas Vester battling away with Marvin Ingenwerth for 9th position. So it's not just this battle here for P2, which looks like Niels van der Kerkelt seems to be seeing that little bit of light at the end of the tunnel. But then Lenson coming up on Barney here. And look, that Ferrari looks a bit more planted than that McLaren in the wet weather conditions, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. It certainly does. They're doing a great job as ever, and we're saying we've got 7 minutes just over to go, and Cody Pride still pushing in your picture-in-picture at the bottom. The gap is a little bit safe, but Lenson is really trying to make that Ferrari go and extract every ounce of power to try and get past the McLaren of Banning in front of him, and he's running very deep into the braking zones there, but that costs him on the exit. As you see, the McLaren just skip away a little bit from him, but they do have they have traffic in front of them, so they're going to have to go around these back markers as quickly but as cleanly as possible, and hopefully, as we just see, they're just nicely pulling out of the way for them, trying to just get as much of the slipstream as it is possible to try and gain a slight advantage of power and speed, but I don't think there was too much gain there, and in fact it's possibly cost him a little bit of time. The McLaren, the gap has just opened up ever so slightly in those last few corners.
Yeah, very much the case, as looks like James Warren in the number 1 from PPR Esports has now made his way up to 13th position on the grid and is doing a fantastic job. So obviously Cody Pride has been ruining himself as to saying, why am I still stuck behind Niels van der Kekelt? Well, Cody, you've been trying, but no matter what you throw at Niels van der Kekelt, he seems to have an answer, but they have got a few cars just up ahead. The back marker's trying to get out of the way. The Nissan does right there and then. And that is where Niels van der Kekelt is just going to have to circumnavigate his way quicker through the back marker traffic in comparison with Cody Pride. As both... Oh, Niels van der Kekelt went very wide there, and Cody Pride very much on his back bumper as Alwin Nam now trying to go up the inside of James Warren. That's Lamborghini versus Ferrari. And we've got 2 Ferraris just here right now. And to be honest with you, there's a Honda NSX just up ahead. That was close between the 2 Ferraris, but also the battle picture-in-picture on the bottom right-hand corner of your screen as Alwin Nam gets past James Warren and goes into the side of him. He loses the back end, hitting the curbs. The wet curbs have finally caught a car out, and I'm not at all surprised it was a Lamborghini.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, going on to the start-finish straight, the Lamborghini just seemed to power past James Warren, but then into the first turn there, he was just all about keeping his foot in to try and take that position as Warren was coming back at him, but as you say, he just ran over the curbs and it just spun him around and said, no, that's enough, thank you very much.
And I think if he was an Italian, Alwin Nam would now be shouting out Mamma Mia at the top of his lungs, and then probably a few curse words in Italian. But that's what can happen in a race like this. 5 minutes, you're battling for position as Cody Pride goes wide. That's I was going to say I'm a poet and I didn't know it, but that's not the case. That's a Freudian slip there on the words there. Sorry, Cody.
Stick to the commentary, Alex. Come on.
Yeah, I know. It wasn't intentional at all there, Steve. But just the amount of times that we've seen Cody go wide coming out of Copse Corner and out of Club as it's side by side for what was it? That's 19th position as Bart Sverink gets up the inside of Van der Kraan in the 253. But then Sverink loses a bit of... he outbrakes himself there. Van der Kraan trying to get the power down in the Mercedes. It's not easy in these cars. And it's now Van der Kekelt and Pride down in the right-hand corner of your screens, getting very, very... well, now in the main picture-in-picture. They've got the 622 up ahead. That's Tim Nijboer, and I think he's battling for position. That's Frans van der Linden up ahead in 22nd. That is the case. And this is going to be rather close for Cody Pride.
Where's he gone?
Completely left. Oh my goodness me. Tim Nijboer could be at the receiving end of a protest there. But look, Cody Pride, he kept the throttle pin going through Abbey.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah,
but now Frans van der Linden's in his way. Frans van der Linden, that is not a battle for position. Let Cody Pride go. He's got his own fight to get into. And Cody Pride, if he was about a further 3 inches across the right-hand side, that car would have been spinning like a pirouetting top right there. But I must be completely honest, it is down to not just... Cody Pride, okay, they might say, well, that was not exactly the right way to do it. But the thing is that if you're trying to make a safe overtake, it's also down to the other individuals to use spatial awareness, and especially when blue flags are out. And if blue flags are out, if you've got your own battle, I don't care who you are, you've got to get out of the way. That is in the rule book.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's all too easy, you know, to think, oh well, I'll just get through this next section of corners and I'll let them go, because the guys have got obviously a big pace differential. You know, they're a lot faster, and they can be on you a lot quicker than you realise. The onus is on the guy who was doing the overtaking to get past cleanly. But yes, you're quite right. Blue flags are waved for a reason, and it means the faster cars approaching, and you're going to go a lap down. You need to oblige and get out of the way. But these things happen. Unfortunately, it's Cody Pride that's now 1.8 seconds behind Van der Kerkelt, who in turn Kerkelt 7 seconds behind race leader George Boothby, with just 1 minute and 46 seconds on the clock. So I think we are literally going to, unless Van der Kerkelt makes a mistake, I think we're pretty much seeing what we're going to see as the podium now.
Yeah, very much the case. I'm just keeping an eye on when the drivers are at the moment. Boothby now making his way down the international straight, past the wing complex, through into the right-hand sweeper at Abbey. So next time round, it will be the white flag will show to the 666 from Sidemax Motorworks. And Boothby has been literally untouchable. The first 3 rounds of the championship, Boothby will have a maximum score of, I think, 105 points after this round. Van der Kerkelt will still be second in the championship, but you've got to factor in that Boothby and Van der Kerkelt know each other very, very well. They're very good friends off the circuit, but Boothby has made good his intentions. He wants to get towards the halfway point of this championship and know that he's got a lead that is comfortable. He doesn't want to put himself to that point where Van der Kerkelt might come back at Barcelona in 2 weeks' time, might fire a warning shot that gets Boothby thinking, and then Van der Kerkelt takes the victory. Anything's possible in GT3 racing. You and I both know that, as now this will be the final lap for the leader.
Yeah, absolutely. 25 seconds left on the clock, and he's just crossed the line. So it will be. This is the final lap. Hopefully, it's not going to catch anybody out fuel-wise. Hopefully, everybody's got enough fuel to get to the end of this one. But what a race from Boothby. I mean, we could spend this whole lap just talking about how good he's been in this championship. Full stop so far. He is the man to beat. He is the man of consistency. He's the pole position man. He really knows how to get the most out of that Ferrari, get it up to the front of the grid, but not only get the most out of it, actually be the most consistent when it comes down to the actual race in any conditions. We saw him at Mazzano, how dominant he was looking there. He's absolutely phenomenal. He's a great driver, a good all-round package, and I think he's going to be very, very tough to beat in this championship.
Clock strike 0. That is it for the race here at Silverstone for round 3, season 3 of GT3 here on Sim Racing Hub International. It has been a display unlike any other. George Boothby now goes across what is effectively the start-finish line for the international complex off of the wing, and he will just have a few more corners to go. Through into Abbey, now into the left at Farm Curve before the tight right-hander at Village. He'll then have just the loop, Aintree, and then the Wellington Straight before Brooklands, Luffield and Woodcote. His lead at this particular moment in time is 7.232 seconds. Niels van der Kerkelt makes his way through Village and the loop. Cody Pride has got to within a second and a half of him right now, but it's one more straightaway. The Wellington Straight for the final time for George Boothby. Took pole position from Cody Pride by 21 thousandths of a second after a 30-minute qualifying session that he pretty much dominated. But now, for the final time, the 28th and final time, Boothby makes his way out of Woodcote. Now we'll start to push down the throttle through into Woodcote, and that's it, the checkered flag. 3 from 3 so far in season 3 for Boothby. He takes the checkered and wins by a commanding lead of 6.6 seconds from Niels van der Kerkelt. Cody Pride a further 1.1 seconds back, as the drivers now will start to make their way towards the checkered flag. And at this particular moment in time, Tim Kroll in the 933 Lexus from Lock Driving will take the checkered flag and be the semi-pro victor here tonight for round 3 of the season. Arwin Nam now battling away with Yannick Valenduc. The battle royale between the two Lamborghinis as they now make their way through. Arwin Nam has been a bit further up the order, but there is Tim Kroll. He's up the inside of one of the other Lexuses as Sem Spankelink will cross the line in 4th. Then you've got Cled Barney in the 85 McLaren in 5th. Dan Lenson, Dave Jr. Then it'll be Tim Muris in the number 9 Honda NSX GT3, Klaus Wester in the number 90 Ferrari. But taking the semi-pro win will be the 933 of Tim Kroll. And second in that class will be the 444. That will be Dennis Bergman in the number 444 Lexus. And then Bart Svering will take P3 in that class, 19th overall. But Yannick Valenduk will come out on top in the battle of the Lamborghinis as his Huracan GT3 Evo looks to have the run and have the number 5 of Arvin Nam in the Lamborghini. And this will be the battle for 15th position as they now make their way through. And Valenduk takes top Lamborghini honours here at Silverstone. But what a performance from George Boothby, winning by just 6.6 seconds, but dominated proceedings whilst we saw the most tumultuous of Titanic battles, courtesy of Niels van der Kekelt and Cody Pride. Steve, that was one hell of a race, wasn't it, buddy?
Yeah, it was absolutely awesome, wasn't it? Obviously, apologies for the couple of disconnects we had earlier on. Obviously, nothing we can do about that. It's just a server side thing. But hopefully you enjoyed what was a fantastic race this evening. Very, very difficult conditions for the drivers throughout. Qualifying, the race, they just didn't have an easy time of it tonight. And talking of easy times, Boothby made that look really easy. Just shows what a level-headed driver he is in some very, very difficult conditions. He just did what he needed to do, nothing more, nothing less. Very dominant, but didn't look to be pushing too close to the edge of anything. It was literally all very, very controlled. Did his pit stop, masterful. Cody Pride, the big winner in the pits, but unfortunately Cody just couldn't hang on to that second place. Couple of mistakes. I think the incident with that back marker towards the end did have a say, because I think Cody was looking to push very hard, and it looked like he did have the pace on Van der Kekelt. I think Cody's the story for Cody Pride this evening was just maybe one or two too many mistakes and missed apexes and run wides and things like that just potentially, I think they've cost him the second place.
Yeah, it's definitely one of those cases where it's a woulda, coulda, shoulda sort of situation, I think is probably the terminology I'll use there, Steve. But, I think at the end of the day, obviously some drivers I've just been seeing in the chat in the chat on Discord, Marcel V had a disconnect as well. I think it was quite a few other people. Dimitri Schenk had a disconnect. So, it's one of those things. It's what can happen from our perspective, obviously from the broadcast side. At the end of the day, we go into Barcelona in just 2 weeks' time. Steve, I'm rather excited for what's going to happen towards the midpoint of season 3 here for GT3 on SRHI.
Yeah, absolutely. Barcelona, it's a great track. It's one of my favourites. Interestingly, when I first started sim racing, it wasn't necessarily. I didn't find it an enjoyable track, but it's one of those that once you click with it, it is a very rewarding track. It's fast, it's flowing, and you've got to be very precise with where you put the car there, because the battles can be very, very interesting, and the various lines through some of the corners for the different cars. It's going to be a good battle. Hopefully, I'm hoping personally, I've seen enough rain so far in this championship. I'm hoping we have dry running, and I hope we get some really close battles. And I genuinely, for the competition, hope that we have someone that can take the battle to Boothby. As good as it is, and as rewarding as it is for him, and it's good to see, and I think he's a great talent, but it would be just nice to see somebody maybe just take it to him, put him under pressure, see if he can soak the pressure up as well as he can drive.
Indeed. So that's it from myself, Alex Goldschmidt, and Steve Proudly, your broadcast team tonight here on Sim Racing Hub International TV. If you have been watching on the YouTube channel, don't forget to give it a like, a subscribe, and also, why not give this video a thumbs up. Join us back again here on SRHI TV for race 3 of the GT4 Sprint Championship, which takes place at Autodromo Enzo Dino Ferrari at Imola, with Tim Fulbrook joining Steve Proudly next week. I'll be back with Steve in just a couple of weeks' time as we head to race 4 at the Circuit de Catalunya Barcelona. Until then, good night, stay safe, and thank you for watching.